July, we had 4th of July. Talked about the Declaration of Independence, and this brings us to Veterans Day. But first, I want to give a little bit of a background on a few things, some issues here, while Peter sets up my presentation coming up next. Okay, my military background. Right out of high school, I went into the Air Force. And I actually got out here at March Air Force Base when I got out. We have some other veterans in the room here. Pastor Paul, weren't you a corpsman in the Navy? Okay. I know Greg Garnier, he's not here today. He was also an airman in the Air Force. Dr. Harvey was an airman in the Air Force. Ken Sanner, who's passed away, God rest his soul, he was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, veteran. Do we have any veterans in the audience right now? Any of our visitors? Sir? Branch? Please stand. Army. Anyone else? Over here? Please. Air Force. Yes, go Air Force. Right. All right, so we have a couple of veterans. Pastor Paul? Looks like we have two.
I think there's two back there.
All right, two. Do you remember payday? Remember you had to go to the paymaster to get paid once a month? Well, as a reminder, we'll give you a payday here today. But you know, during basic training, remember I'm only 18 years old, barely 18 years old out of high school. What do I know, right? And during basic training, besides all the marching and the other activities you do, you know, in basic training, there was some classroom activity. And then some of the classroom courses were a thing called rumors and propaganda. Now, sometimes they call that fake news today, but basically it was, we needed to be aware of rumors being spread when you're at war, because this was the tail end of Vietnam, and a lot of the troops were rotating back to the United States at that time. And even in law enforcement, you know, we always have to be aware of what we're confronted with during investigations. And I think about this because at times it's almost as though I'm a professional conspiracy theorist, because you go into situations and you literally have to take and analyze the situation in front of you and make a determination. Is there merit to this? Is there evidence that supports it? And if there is, and an arrest is justified, then you make an arrest. And even when we come across coincidences actually are evidence, in a manner of speaking. And at times the enemy will get us to dismiss. That's just a coincidence, when in fact there's really some merit to it. So these are some things we have to keep an eye on here. Also, let's think about the days of Noah. What was going on in the days of Noah? It was pretty bad, wasn't it? I mean, it was almost like civilization has come to an end in a sense. But what did God do to correct that problem at that time? A what? A flood. But he also promised never to do that again, did he? Okay. And gives us a reminder. But what happens when civilization drifts into that realm again, like the days of Noah? At what point do you think he'll step in to maybe correct it before it gets that far? Well, we'll see here. Now, in the military, there's some terms that are used typically. You know, I had a sergeant that I worked for, was Air Force. All of my uncles were Army. My dad's brothers were Army. My mom's side, my uncle was Army. So I've been around a lot of veterans besides myself. And some things that tend to go along the same way is our observations, especially when you work in that profession. Each of you have a profession, and when something's not right, you notice it, don't you? No, that ain't right. No, that isn't the way it works. You know, terms like cattywampus. Anybody hear of that one before? Just doesn't quite line up, does it? How about in the military, we use a term called, and I'll do the word that is accepted here, is messed up. Well, there's some other words, that colorful words that are used along the way. But how about a gig line? Pastor Paul, what's a gig line?
You want me to show it?
Please.
It's when everything lines up. Your tie and your buckle and
when your shirt lines up along with your buckle along with your trousers. And if that's messed up, you're going to get known about it. You might have to do some push-ups. So if my gig line's messed up, I'll do the extra 1,000 steps tomorrow. Okay. So we're going to go through some of these things here. Now, words matter. Sentence structure matters. Punctuation matters. And for any of you coders, does the syntax matter? Well, there's a lot of veterans that have seen some things going on that's like, no, that's messed up. That ain't right. No, something's wrong there. Has anybody had a sense of there's something wrong going on out there, especially these last few years? Yeah? For instance, anybody? Please. Now, just you have that sense, right? Something's not right. Well, let me take a moment here. If I was to say we're going to have communion, and I was to come over here, you know, folks, we got some juices over here, got a couple different flavors that you can use, and we got some crackers over here. You know what? This one's vegan. So you can just come up and help yourself whenever you want. And you know, if you want to do some foot washing, you know, we got some wipes. Why don't you just go back in the back there? And I think there's a trash barrel, but just go ahead and wash your feet, you know. What would you think about that? That's messed up, isn't it? That's messed up. Okay. Yeah, that ain't the way it works, right? Okay. Is there anything else here in this room that you noticed that doesn't seem right? Ah, thank you. Peter's the only one that came up to me ahead of time and said, how come they're switched? That's not right, is it? So in veterans, we'll see these things. And there's some things that have been going on for some time. All the way back to, let's see. Which one was it? Which inauguration? The 2020 or 2021? January 2020. That ain't right. Even some folks notice that may not be aware of it. In any event, you know, so many veterans have seen that, but there was one veteran in particular. He is a Army veteran, spent some time up at Fort Irwin. Anybody know where Fort Irwin's at? On the way up to 15, about 35 miles past Barstow. It's a regional training area. Now, when I was in the Army National Guard, by the way, after I got into law enforcement, I also went back to the Army National Guard for a number of years. And we used to always go, you know, the summer camp, you know, 1 week in a month and, you know, 2 weeks during the summer, you know, duty. We'd go up to, you know, Camp Roberts and things like that. But we'd also go out to Fort Irwin, which is a national training facility. And this particular Army veteran, oh, there we go. Get some feedback there, right? Thank you. He started seeing a lot of these things happening. So he took the time to start actually chronicling all these particular items and came up with a book that did that, which was really nice. Derek Johnson is the one that did this type of background. You know what was interesting is he took the time to really go back and really look at all those messed up things that came across along the way. Yeah, we spent some time at Lucky Fuse out at Camp Irwin. Now, anybody know what an OP4 is in the military? OP4? Opposing forces? Anytime you're in a training situation, you always have the opposing force to challenge you, the ones that are being trained. You got to have somebody to fight against, right, in a training scenario. So those are some of the things that we got involved in. And Derek Johnson was part of all of that, too. He at least took the time to document a lot of these things. Now, and these are veterans. Now, on a side note, years ago, Lorna Travers, remember Lorna Travers? Bless her soul. Just see you're over here playing the keyboard. One day she came up to me and she mentioned something to me. And yeah, okay. And I just kind of filed it away in one of those pigeonholes in the back of my brain. But it was always there. And as things kind of developed along, guess what? Wait a minute, maybe there's something to this, what she was talking about. And we'll get into that in just a moment. Anybody ever here do a puzzle? Anybody do puzzles? Yeah? 1,000-piece puzzle? Okay. It's in a box, isn't it? When you open up this box brand new, oh, by the way, this is kind of a puzzle that's a puzzle within a puzzle. You can see there's different pieces there. And there's always some kind of a master picture to look at to help you complete that puzzle, isn't there? Okay, kind of like a blueprint in a sense. And then you open up the bag and there's all the pieces in the bag. Now, do you know that there's actually the 1,000 pieces, the 999? Do you really believe that there's 1,000 pieces in here? Okay. Now, come on. I mean, how many times have we done a puzzle and there's a piece that just we can't seem to find? Whoa. Guilty laughs there, right? So what does our mind do? We got to think outside the box, don't we? Maybe it fell on the floor. Maybe it's under one of the placemats. Maybe the dog got it. Maybe somebody took that last piece so they could be the one to finish the puzzle, right? Our brains are constantly spinning on those kind of things. But when in fact, all 1,000 pieces are there. We just didn't recognize it when we saw it. All right. So how about in life, there are little pieces of a puzzle that pop up. And in those pieces of puzzle, we know it belongs to something, but not specifically where it's at. Because we don't really have that really big picture to be able to divine it in. And we don't know how many other pieces of the puzzle are out there, but we know something's wrong. Or we know this is a piece of a puzzle that I'm not quite sure what it belongs to. Okay? Ever get that to that point? But our little brain says we're going to think outside the box here and try to justify our reasoning for what our conclusion is. But then again, we don't know what we don't know. Well, until we do. Even in Ecclesiastes, the first chapter, as it goes through, there's a one in there that talks about there's nothing new under the sun, is there? Nothing new under the sun. It's all very defined. The sun passes by, rises, and it sets, and it comes back around. The rivers run into the ocean that never fill up. Where does that cycle go? Very cyclic, isn't it? Our world. So what I'm going to get into now is a little more in depth in the oath of office. Is anybody ever here, besides our veterans, taken an oath of office for any employment that they had? Okay, an oath of office. But let's take a moment and look at 2 Kings 6:15. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. What did the Lord do? And his Lord prayed. We should all always pray. And have we find ourselves also to the point where, they've been boiling us slowly over time to the point that by the time we realize it, it's almost too late? Sometimes do we feel that way? I mean, look what's happened just in the last 4 years, 5 years, all through COVID. Oh, just 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? How many years did that take to flatten the curve, allegedly? So we can see that there's challenge, but where's our military all along here? Has our military gone woke? I mean, there's a lot of advertisement that the military's gone woke in many ways. Where are they at? Are they on scene, or are they in the background? Well, what's going on here? Okay, Veterans Day. When's Veterans Day? Pardon? November 9? Well, that's today. It's the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Every year, doesn't matter. It's not like Thanksgiving that always falls on a Thursday, or Memorial Day or Labor Day. And when is that going to be this week? Coming up? This coming Monday. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be back here on Monday at 11 o'clock in the morning, right here. on the 11th day, 11th month, to pray for these veterans, and some further information about what I'm going to go over with you today for those that like to join me. All right, who are our armies, our military? Well, the Army, it goes back to what, June 14th, 1775? Wasn't that like before the Declaration of Independence was signed? By the way, what else is June 14th? What other holiday is June 14th? Flag Day. How about the Navy for all those corpsmen? Yeah, October 13th, and shortly after that, the Marine Corps, which is a part, aren't they like part of the Navy? Pastor Paul? Yeah, okay. Along came the Coast Guard, Air Force, and just recently, more recently, the Space Force. So these are our branches of the military, all veterans that are there now today. Now, Veterans Day is set aside as a thank and honor of all those who served honorably in the military in wartime or peacetime, where Memorial Day was to honor those that had made the ultimate sacrifice, very specifically. In fact, Veterans Day is largely intended to thank the living veterans, of course, for their service, to acknowledge that their contributions to our national security are appreciated, and to underscore the fact that all those who served, not only those who died, have sacrificed and done their duty. Could somebody bother to take a picture and see what this is all about here? You all got cameras, right? You know how to do it. You can do it. I've already tested it, so we already tested it from the balcony, so it does work. Come on. What is it? Congress. Does that have something to do with the Constitution, maybe? All right. Where's it addressed? Does it look something like this? An oath of office. Think about this. This is the Constitution saying this. The senators and representatives, better known as Congress, the House and the Senate, before mentioned, and the members of the several states, all those states that were out there at the time, and continuing on, and all executive and judicial officers. That means all them folks in Congress, both in the executive branch and the judicial branch, and certainly Congress. Both of the United States of these several states shall be bound by an oath or affirmation to support the Constitution. But no religious test shall be ever required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Everything I'm going to show you today here is either a .gov or a .mil for military on some of these items here. Now, how about pulling this one up? Which one does this one talk about? Pastor Paul? Would you read the intro to this particular oath?
Oath of office. An individual, except the president, elected or appointed to an office of honor or profit in the civil service of uniformed services, shall take the following oath.
And this is the oath that's there. Now, wait a minute. Except the president?
Any individual except the president.
Okay, that is what?
Elected.
Elected?
Any elected individual.
Or appointed? Was it?
Yeah, or appointed.
Or appointed. Civil service?
Yes.
How about uniformed service, better known as the military?
Yes, uniformed and
okay.
silver.
Okay. So all these, so in the military in particular, that means the commissioned officers. You know there's two sides to the military. Your commissioned officers, the lieutenants through generals, and then you have the enlisted personnel, which is your, in this case, airmen, corpsmen, the Marines, Navy, seamen. All right, those are the enlisted folks. But let's see what that oath actually says. And of course you're going to put your, did it say anywhere that you have to raise your right hand or put your hand on a Bible or anything? It never did say that, did it? Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Foreign's pretty easy to understand, isn't it? How about that domestic part? Okay? That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. Now, if you were to go to the Constitution, if you were to download the PDF of the Constitution and do a word search for God, it's not going to be in there. There's only one, and then there's only one oath that's going to be in the Constitution. We'll get to that in just a moment. Only one oath that's actually in the Constitution. This is where it's referred to an oath. So that means all of those officers, all of those congressmen, all of those senators, all have to take this oath. So what does it really an oath mean, right? Well, we'll see. How about scanning this one? And it's dealing with, you got it? Oath of enlistment. This is for the enlisted personnel. Now, Pastor Paul, myself, and the others that I met, enlisted or off? Enlisted? Yes, sir. Enlisted? Officer? Army? Okay, enlisted. Little bit different. Check this one out. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed above me according to the regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Kind of different, isn't it? Little different scope there. So help me God. When I went in, this is the enlistment that I took, the oath that I took because I was enlisted. Foreign and the domestic, I didn't think much about. But as I went through my career later on in law enforcement, the domestic became paramount. This is my opinion. Because that's where a lot of the challenges were. Our own people that were not following the Constitution, were circumventing the Constitution, writing laws and activities to get around the Constitution because they didn't want to have to adhere to it. And of course, the so help me God at the end. Let's try this one here. Got it? Oh, the President. The Presidential Oath of Office. And where's that found at? That's actually in the Constitution, isn't it?
Article 2.
Before he entered the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath or affirmation. Now, mind you, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court's the one that administers, as you know, the oath of office. And, they'll raise their hand and put their hand on the Bible. And I went back to all of them. That I could go back on, that there was video on it, just to confirm this. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, and ability is capitalized, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. They will always add, so help me God, at the end, even though it's not in the Constitution for them to say that. Where does the power lie in the executive branch in our government? Does the president have a lot of power? Yeah. Ability. Preserve and protect, not support. Preserve and protect. It's on that president's shoulders to deal with those issues. So help me God. Well, where does so help me God come from? What does it mean to you? Anybody? What does it mean to you, so help me God? Do we even think about that? As we go through our daily lives, do we pray and ask for God's help in many ways? For whatever our trials, tribulations, our crucibles that we're going through, or strife that we're going through? Well, Richard Watson, in his Biblical and Theological Dictionary, gave a little bit of a heads up, and we might think about this a little bit. The essential purpose of saying, "So help me God," is to express sincerity and emphasize greater vigilance. I mean, what am I saying? My testimony's true, and I will do everything I can with God's help to perform my duty with the utmost diligence and integrity. Continuing on, summoning the Lord's help acknowledges God's existence as the supreme authority, invokes his punishment if an oath is broken. Now, when we say, "So help me God," what God are we talking about? The God of Abraham, Martin, and John? The God of Isaac, Jacob, and Abraham? Or some other God? I think it depends on who's raising their hand and who they worship. But at the time when this was written, what was the predominant, if you will, religion or theological understanding back then? Was Christian. Continuing on, the significance of saying, "So help me God," flows from that tiny word "so," which adds to the oath a kind of energy that declares, upon conditioning of my speaking the truth or performing this promise and not otherwise, may God help me. Amen. Is there ever found an atheist in a foxhole? No. I'm sure they're crying out, "Help me God," too. All right, Psalms 56, 3 and 4. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, and I am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? So help me God. All right, let's try this one here. Abby, what is that one? It didn't come up for you? A who? Oh, the Commander-in-Chief. Ah, interesting. Commander-in-Chief of what? Well, the President shall be Commander-in-Chief of the Army and the Navy of the United States, and of the militia of the several states, better known as the National Guard, in today's time, the National Guard, Air Guard, so on and so forth, of the states that are there, when called into actual service of the United States. In other words, when they're federalized. Are our military currently, are our National Guards across the nation federalized at this very moment? Yes, they are. How did that happen? What caused that to happen? Backing up a bit there. The phrase Army and Navy is used in the Constitution refers to all those armed forces that we talked about earlier in the presentation. And one more here. The Law of War Manual. Military has a different set of rules that they play by. The Law of War Manual is the Department of Defense War Manual. It was signed in June 12th of 2015. It's the latest version. It's a combination of military and federal lawyers who took the Livier Code of 1863, the Geneva Convention, the Hague Conventions, the Nuremberg trials. The Law of War Manuals from the United Kingdom, Canada, Germany, Austria, and all the strengths of those to strengthen our Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is the military law. Separate set of rules, isn't it, that they go by. You remember the UCMJ? All of you remember the UCMJ? That we're in? All right, in the Law of War Manual, there's some interesting things that are in there. I just picked out a few of them. Unconventional warfare, irregular warfare, law of belligerent occupation. what Lorna was talking about starting to come to light. Special Operations Forces. What do you think Special Operations Forces do? No. That's civilian. We're talking military here. Right. Is that kind of that secret squirrel covert type of activity? No, we're not talking Jason Bourne and all that kind of stuff. Occupied territory. Now, I'm going to play a little section of Trump's inauguration from back in, was it 2017? His first inauguration. But play a little section. I want you to be focused on not only what he's saying, because a lot of folks are going to know what he was saying at the time, but look what's going on behind him as he talks. He's going to congratulate or thank the Obamas for the transition, and then he's going to pivot and he's going to go into this little discussion. A lot of folks didn't know what he was talking about. Even today, they don't know what he's talking about. By the way, this is a whitehouse.gov video, so as far as any kind of intellectual property or copyright doesn't apply. It's free to anybody that wants to go look at this. Let's see if we can get this to play.
Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. And we are grateful to President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama for their gracious aid throughout this transition. They have been magnificent. Thank you.
Right here. Watch what's going to happen right here.
Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C. and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. That all changes starting right here and right now, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you.
Thank the Constitution here, Declaration of Independence.
It belongs to everyone gathered here today and everyone watching all across America. This is your day. This is your celebration. And this, the United States of America, is your country. What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. January 20th, 2017 will be remembered as the day the people became the rulers of this nation again. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. Everyone is listening to you now. You came by the tens of millions to become part of a historic movement, the likes of which the world has never seen before. At the center of this movement is a crucial conviction that a nation exists to serve its citizens.
Any speculation what he was talking about? This is, well, yeah, in a manner of speaking, what evolved eventually into the deep state. But this is what Lorna was talking about. This is alluding to that exact issue. Now, on Monday, when I come back here, there's a whole new set of information that'll help to reinforce what he's actually talking about. And some other ones about what our military's been doing behind the scenes all along. Okay, so who's in charge right now? You ever wondered that? Who's running the ship? Who's in charge? Come on, somebody's got to say, wait a minute. Yes, there's some speculations out there. Who's really pulling the strings? Who's the puppet master? Come on. What's happening here? Oh, thank you. Ultimately, thank you. And is there a blueprint anywhere? I mean, we looked at in essence, a blueprint in that puzzle, but is there a bigger blueprint we don't know about? Okay. Who's the director? Is it like we're watching a movie right now? Any of you ever watch any of the sitcoms, situation comedies? What do they typically do in a situation comedy? It's a particular situation. I mean, you can go back to The Honeymooners, you can go back to the Dick Van Dyke Show, you can go back to things like Everybody Loves Raymond, right? It's all the household settings and all the things that happen with families and the interaction between, but it's always what? Taken to the extreme. How bad can it get? How crazy can it get? And, with laughter involved there. Now, one of the situation comedies when it comes to military was the MASH series. You all remember the MASH series? MASH, right? There was a movie, a pilot, and then, all that was filmed out there in the Malibu Hills, out there in the Malibu Canyon area. The thing about the MASH that I always enjoyed about it, it's the satire of the military. And how they would use extremes of different things, whether it was the paymaster or whether it was the problems. And some of them were very serious issues that our military go through and having to deal with. And having been in them, if anybody of our veterans, they can appreciate that more so than somebody that wasn't in the military because of what you had to cope with. The death, the long term, always wanting to go home, trying to, And by the way, there was only 2 people that were starring in that series that were actually veterans. It was Alan Alda and Jamie Farr, who played Klinger. They were both veterans. To help bring us to understanding what wartime is. When's the last time Congress declared war? Anybody know? World War II. So the Korean War, Korean and Vietnam, those were all just conflicts. They were police actions. They weren't wars. And ever since then. Now let's go back and take a look at this. Take a close look at these military that are standing behind him as he's going through this little discussion here about giving the country back to the people. Again. What do we see about these military uniforms? Is there something unique there that you see? Which one? The headband? Good obs. What does that blue headband represent? Anybody? Military intelligence. How about the other one on his left? the Judge Advocate General. They're sending a message. Now, if I was to stand up here and I'm talking to you and I'm telling you a story and I got my fingers crossed as I'm doing that, how would you interpret that? Come on, every school kid knows what that means, right? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, one way of doing it. Or, I don't mean what I'm saying. You know, we saw that with the POWs. Some of the messages the POWs were putting out because they were forced to make statements, they had their fingers crossed because every school child knows what that means, right? It's not what I mean, all right? So we can see messages that are being sent all along. We just have to recognize them for what they are. Do we see that just in everyday life? Messages that are being sent that makes us perk up a little bit, maybe raise a brow a little bit. What is that? What is that about? You're back to the pieces of the puzzle. All right. Anybody ever have a large document and they want to print off pages? They don't want to print the whole thing. They don't want to just print the current page, but they want to print a couple of different pages here and there. How do you do that? What's the syntax for that? We're back to, if you can see that up there. I want to print pages 45 and 47. How do you do that in your printer? Space 47, right? And it'll give you just those two pages and nothing else. How about this one? I want pages 45, 46, and 47. Is that how you would do it? Correct. Thank you. But is C here, the third one on there, is that saying the same thing? You use the word dash. Why is that? It's not a hyphen? Oh, we got a hyphen over here. It's a range, isn't it? All of 45, anything in between. All right, anybody ever see this picture before? Pardon? You haven't seen it? What's going on here? Irene? Oh, where? Okay. What do you think's going on here? Just looking at the picture, how do you interpret that? You got Satan on one side and his opponent on the other side. They're playing chess. That's the name of the picture, is playing chess. Some of them say it's called checkmate. Anybody play chess in here? Chess? Chess? Okay. I don't, so I know some of the pieces are. I just don't know how they work. I've never taken the time to do that. So if you were to take a look at this, how everything's spread out there, is there anything up there that might pique your interest? What is it? Does Satan appear to be that he's got the upper hand? Neener, neener, I've got you. Okay. How about his opponent there, this mere mortal? He's troubled, isn't he? He's in a pickle. He's the devil's got him. But if you really take a close look at it and you know what you're looking at, there's one last move that the human has. What do you think that move is? And what do you think that move is going to be? The king. The king always has one last move to beat in this case, Satan. There's many. You can go on YouTube and there's different interpolations of this and how it came about, but it all comes down to the same. The king, our king, has one last move. Think about all the situations we've ever come across that seem to be, there's no out. We're stuck. This is it. It's over with. But what? The king always has one last move. That's what this represents. Even think about Jesus and Lazarus. with Lazarus, what did his family think had happened? He's died. Rigor mortis is come and gone, and the body's starting to decay. Did he wait on purpose to have them understand that? I do too. But the king always has one last move, doesn't he? We have to always remember that. I've been on my deathbed 3 times, going through leukemia. Wasn't expected to make it through the night. And you know what? The king has one last move. Dr. Zavala, stem cells, T cells, master cells, all the same thing? Different? Pardon? They're not. So if they had killed off all of my bone marrow, which I didn't realize there's no bone marrow donor, which one of those would have kicked in and grew me a new set of bone marrow? Stem cells. Did you know you have that within you? Isn't the body amazing, God's creation, to be able to do that? It's always got one last move. What do you think this represents? So what do you think's going on in that dash? Thank you for using the word dash. It's all in laws, military law. So let's take a look at that as we finish up here. We have a few more minutes. The dash. The world has literally been witnessing a government under a military occupation found in the Law of War manual. While the government is under a continuity of operations plan found in all of the 7 continuity directives, issuances with an emphasis on devolution and reconstitution. It's an epic, biblical, monumental, and historical special operation. We talked about those special operations, all written in military laws, orders, regulations, and customs paired with the executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations that outline a strategic and special military operation being carried out and enforced. These past 4 years, have we seen some really obnoxious things happening? This is America, and these things are happening. Kind of like that sitcom that takes everything to the extreme. Sometimes I think to myself, is our God? Wake up, people. Pay attention to what's going on. You take me out of your life, just like the Israelites did at times, what's going to happen to you? In Psalms 33:12, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he has chosen his own inheritance. Amen. So what do you think? Who's in charge? Well, we know God is ultimately. But has God used armies to correct problems along the way? Sure. And who are we honoring on Monday? The veterans that are part of that armies that do that. If you want more on how this is actually panning out, what's actually happening, Derek Johnson, Army veteran that chronicled a lot of this stuff, we can get into that on Monday. But now I'd like to ask Alex to come on up. Is Angelica here with you today? Okay, come on up, Alex. I'd like everybody, Alex is leaving in the morning. He's going to go back on some training back in Washington, D.C., and we'd like to lay hands on him. If I could ask anybody that would like to come up, certainly our elders to come up. We're going to pray for him before he leaves. Yeah, sure. Anybody else that like to join? Come on up here, Alex.
So he's going back there for 3 months to work.
for doing this. That's awesome. I'm glad
Yes.
somebody's doing this for him.
This is Alex. He's our brother. Okay, let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this blessed time. We can come and we can honor Alex as he travels, give him the protection, give him the understanding in his new role that he's going to be doing. Some of the techniques that he's going to learn back there in this teaching hospital will bring back those techniques to a world here in our area to help those children with their challenges that they have. This time that he has, give him the confidence, give him the resources, give him the serenity as he goes through this process, not only traveling, but through the actual day-to-day experiences that he will realize and witness your true health that you've given him and all of those that he will be able to work with when he comes back. So this is an opportunity that few people ever get, to be able to learn and to be able to transmit certainly not only your word, but also your healing practices that we have. As Alex and Angelica travel, of course she'll be coming back next week, but give them that confidence that you're walking right side by side every step of the way.
Yeah.
You're right there next to him.
Yeah.
Any worries that he has, any anxiety he has, he will always turn it over to you.
Yes.
We know Alex is a true man of faith, and he has the confidence in you, the faith in you, that you will give him this opportunity to be able to excel beyond his own dreams.
Amen.
We thank you in
Thank
the
you.
precious Jesus. Amen.
Thank you,
Amen.
Alex.
Amen.
Thank you, Alex. That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you for doing that. I was wanting that. I was going to say something later on. But thank you.
And as we leave today, we thank you for joining us. And if any of you want prayer, come on up. Pastor Paul and I are here. We have some elders that are here. We'd be happy to pray with you before you have. Enjoy your Sabbath afternoon. Happy Sabbath. Thank you.